Hello everyone, this is Frogman and welcome to my Manufactio test world. Today I'm going to be kind of showing off a little bit about what I have learned, good God crows, go away, with the Chimney mod. There's not a whole lot of documentation, or at least none that we found. Most of what I've been seeing is basically other people experimenting it on their channels on YouTube, so I figured I would at least, kind of show you guys what I've been doing. It's a very simple mod, very cheap mod, very early game mod. It is no reason not to be using it early game, just so that you can move the pollution around and put it where you want it. So, let's take a look at what we have. These are the 3 blocks that come with the mod, and what's rather interesting about it is in the chimney mod, we can use just about any block in the game, including glass, to make the parts. So if you want a glass chimney, you can have a glass chimney. If you want a pink glazed terracotta pump, you can have a pink glazed terracotta pump. So that's just something to keep in mind. So the first block that we're going to fool with is a chimney. And I have it written up here, hollow, and it does work with filters. So later on down the line when you do get the pollution filters, you can basically smack them on top of the chimney and it will collect it without having to be pumped or moved anywhere. The block is crafted as such. So any blocks in a 3x3 pattern or 3 pattern on the side of here, what is it, 6 blocks gets you 16 of them. So that's pretty cheap actually. The next block is the vent, and the vent only pulls from the sides. That's the thing to note. It does not pull from the top of the block, and it does not pull from the bottom of the block. So if you can see the little slots on the sides of the vent, that means it can see the pollution that it's trying to move. It is crafted as such with 4 chimneys, and you get 4 vents. Again, because this is pretty cheap, that's still really cheap. The last block is the pump, which needs a redstone signal to work, and it has a 16 vent limit, meaning that it will be able to pull or push through 16 vents on any side. And we'll get into that more on later here in just a little bit. So it is crafted with 4 of the vents, 4 redstone repeaters, and a block of coal. So pretty cheap. Once you get some redstone, once you get some coal, that's the hardest part of it. So that's like really early game. So it's pretty cheap. There's no reason not to be making them. So on to the first part, which is how do we use these blocks? And I have my leftover iron blocks here just to kind of make sure I was knowing what was going on. And you need that. All right. The chimney by itself can be attached to any of the emitting machines or blocks or whatever that does the polluting part of the machine or the thing. These can be placed in world, meaning that I can just have it vent a room, and as the pollution moves to it, so like if I have a roof like here, the pollution will find its way to that little spot here and go up it. So that is a way of just venting a room, and we will look at that in just a second. However, there is a caveat to this, is the fact is because this is a hollow block, and I have that fence post there for a reason, you can see I can kind of climb in and out of it, meaning that an entity or an item can fall down this. And the reason why I stopped is because there's a block. I can't get past this block right here. So something can end up stuck in there. Well, if you're trying to keep a villager alive and he falls in there and this thing emits a pollution block, they'll just drown or die or whatever. So if you want to stop that from happening, at least fence posts, iron bars, and glass panes, if I can get a glass pane, at least those 3 objects perform something that does like this, which means that is still transparent more or less. It doesn't exist. It's an air block to this chimney. So that means that the pollution can go past it if you want it to. So I can put a fence post down and say I wanted to make this flush with the floor. I can do something like this. I can now walk over it but not fall in it. Carpets do not work. Carpets are an effective plug for a chimney, so that just kind of, it won't work. Don't even bother. I've already tried it. It will literally just stop up the chimney and nothing will come out of it. So on to the next thing. This is the setup for if I want to remove pollution from a machine or a furnace or anything that is going to emit pollution like this nasty mess over here. I have to place the pump on the bottom of the thing. So we'll look at that in a second. But it has to be on the bottom. So whatever the block is that emits the pollution, it has to be on the bottom of it. Then it will shove the pollution sideways up to 16 blocks or 16 vents out to the end. On the 17th block, you can place a chimney. The vent will push it into the chimney and up out into the world. So that's how this works. Now, the next way to use these is to vent a room. So let's just say, and that's why the iron blocks were there, because I'm, being silly. Let's just say that this is the ceiling. Basically what happens is the pollution flows up, it hits the ceiling and moves sideways to within the range of the vent. And the range of the vents generally is about 4 blocks. So once the pollution gets right into this area, if you watch it, when you build these, you'll see that once it gets about right there, the vent is going to pull it into itself, and then the pump will pull it out and exhaust it out a chimney or out the top of itself. Chimneys have to be placed on top of the pump, or it will not output into the chimney. They do not output on the sides. So you can go chimneyless, where it'll just push the pollution out into the world like that, or you can put a chimney on top of it and it will work. Again, like I stated over there, the vent has to see it on its side. So if I do something like this, that side's not going to work. This surface does not pull pollution in. Only the side with the slots in it. So yes, that means you have to hang this from the ceiling. So let's get the day back. Over here, this is the 16 block long run of vents. Now, I have seen this, and it does not necessarily work every time, but if we do something like this, and I'm just going to stick a bunch of them down. I know that's not 16. This pump sees all of the vents on either side of it, and in doing so, it either gets confused or it's just odd, because sometimes it'll pull from all the way over there, and sometimes it'll pull from all the way over there, but most of the time it only pulls from the middle 8. So if you're going to try to evacuate a room, it's best to do it like so that this pump is using the full extent of all of the vents, and then it's moving the pollution where it needs to go. So just keep that in mind, that if you try to double it up or use 16 that way, all directions around it, this does not work. It has to be attached to the side of the pump. So side, and yeah, that's all it can do. So it's just funky if you try to go multiple directions. So just use more pumps. They're not expensive. So all right, over to this area, there are some other things to note. This blast furnace emits 2 types of pollution. And because it emits 2 types of pollution, at times we're going to have problems with how we evacuate the pollution from it. So there's a neat little thing, like I said over there in the beginning, is you can stick something on top of a emitter or on the side of it, and it will just pull the pollution out of it. So technically, any block that I can touch with this chimney on this blast furnace will allow me to remove the pollution from it, including the top block. So if you really wanted to figure out a way to make this to where you can actually insert stuff from the side, which an inserter will put it in from the side, you can put the chimney right on top of it and it'll emit out the top. So let's get this guy burning. And as you note, see, it just came out of that block, and now it's out of that block, and it'll emit from any one of the blocks anywhere on the thing. How you know you got this right, especially on furnaces, is that there will be a particle effect that comes out that shows you that it's working. So that means that now all of the pollution is going to come out of this chimney. Now, this is a note thing here. This is telling me that there's something I need to worry about. If I end up with a carbon block and a sulfur block at the same time, it's only going to put one in the chimney, and it's going to put the other one in the world. So on things like this, it's best to do 2 chimneys. I know it looks silly, but it's best to do 2 chimneys. We'll play with the furnace now. Furnaces have particle effects. They show you that they're doing something, and then they emit. Furnaces, again, can have chimneys put on top of them. Particle effect should come out the top. We can put these on the sides. So if you want to put it out a wall or out through the roof or whatever, that works as well. This little biogenerator we're not going to get the particles. So if I put that right there, we're not going to get the particles, but that is a valid side for it to emit from. So eventually we'll see a bit of carbon pollution puff out of there. The same thing happens over here, and this is the problem child for the majority of the modular machines, because the power block is where modular machines emit pollution from. This and the lab are the hard ones because of how the power block is accessed. But in this case, I can do this, this, or this. All of those are valid locations for the chimney to move the pollution up. All right, so we've got that over with. So say I don't want to do this. Well, then we can use the pump right there, that setup. I can stick a pump on the bottom of this guy, so we'll put one right here. And because this one has two, I want to make sure that I'm getting all of it. So we're going to move, let's just do it this way. We'll move these out a couple of blocks and these out a couple of blocks. I don't want to get too close to that furnace. Actually, I'm too close. Okay. And then we can do something like this. One more. Okay, cool. And what that's going to do, regardless of the distance on either one of these, is it's going to move the pollution out of the furnace. And I think it's probably already done. No, it isn't. Okay. And if you look, we have particle effects on both sides. What that's going to do is make sure that when something wants to emit and it can't get out one side, it can go out the other. And I know that looks a little crazy. You can run them sideways. You can kind of run two pumps into a single set of vents. The basic problem is that this moves pollution through it fairly slowly, and then once it gets to here, it has a couple of, games ticks or second or so before it then decides to move up. So if this is a very heavy polluter, I can back this up, and if I end up backing this up, this doesn't blow up like other things do. It just stops working. So that means that if I don't have any place to pump the pollution to, the pollution will then emit out of whatever is making the pollution. So same thing works with this guy. If we grab a pump and we grab some filters and get rid of the grass, there is a chimney. Bip. And I need a lever. And if we look, the particle effects will go away from the furnace, and they now move over there. So that means that's where the pollution is coming out of. The same thing can be done with this. Unfortunately, it cannot be done with that assembler. Now, if I come over to this assembler, I can get to the bottom of that block. So I can do this. That's a legit way to do it. So break the flour. You're not going to get the particle effects, but it is going to pull it sideways and then move it up. So there is that. Okay, so let's go over to this thing. Hi, guy. This is by far the worst polluting block in the game as far as I am aware, or at least it could be. So let's toss in some coal and we'll watch what happens. Now we get to see what it does. See? Touches the side. I'm actually waiting for one to hit the top of the thing, which will take a minute. See how far out that one was? So this will continue to evacuate the area and do what it needs to do. What we're concerned about, though, is again, I have built a little test in here. There are two pumps on the bottom of this. If I just don't want that to happen in here at all, there's the particles. And out they go. And it's either raining. Is it raining? Is it raining? It's always raining in this world. Okay. Now, so that's a kind of a general thing. Notice there's no pollution happening in this room at all now. And as long as neither one of these gets stuffed up, it will stay out there. And as a final note, which I did say over there, things work with filters. If I have the correct filter, which this one has been crafted, I can place a filter right there and a filter right there. And over time, it will accumulate whatever it comes into it. You see how it stops? Should be able to see it if we wait long enough. See, it didn't go past that point. It just hits that filter and gets sucked up. So you can place filters on top of this as well. And you can place filters right there. So once you get to the point where these are, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to use the pollution pumps to clean up your area. You can just stop the pollution from occurring in the first place, or at least getting out in the world with a filter on top of it. So I think that is about all of that. That should be everything we need to do. So I guess I want to thank you guys for watching and checking this out. Hopefully this helped out. I usually don't do tutorials, so hopefully this works. Thank you. Bye.